Waiting too long for a lawyer costs Florida residents everything. Most Florida residents only call a lawyer after a crisis has already exploded. By then, options are limited, deadlines have passed, and damage is done. Knowing exactly when Florida law requires professional legal help, and when it strongly recommends it, can protect your money, your family, and your freedom. Here is your complete guide. Why timing is everything in Florida law. Florida law operates on strict deadlines, procedural requirements, and statutory timelines that apply regardless of whether you have legal representation. Missing a filing deadline, signing the wrong document, making a statement to law enforcement, or simply failing to respond to a legal notice can permanently eliminate rights and options that would otherwise have been fully available to you. The question of when to hire a lawyer in Florida is not really a question of affordability or preference. It is a question of legal risk. Every area of Florida law carries specific moments where the involvement of a qualified attorney changes outcomes dramatically. Understanding those moments before you reach them is the difference between protecting yourself effectively and spending years recovering from consequences that were entirely preventable. This video covers the 10 most critical situations where Florida residents need a lawyer, what the specific legal risks are in each situation, and why acting early rather than late determines the quality of your outcome in every single one of them. You have been arrested or are under investigation. If you're arrested or under investigation in Florida, securing a criminal defense attorney immediately is critical. You have the right to remain silent and the right to legal counsel under the U.S. and Florida constitutions. Criminal cases move quickly, with a first court appearance within 24 hours where bond is set. Early stages shape the entire case, including evidence collection and charging decisions. An attorney can argue for lower bond, identify constitutional violations, and communicate with prosecutors early. Acting fast can protect your rights and may even resolve the case before formal charges are fully developed. You're going through a divorce or custody dispute. Florida family law under Chapter 61 of the Florida statutes governs divorce, parental rights, time sharing, child support, and alimony. These proceedings involve legally binding court orders that control your financial life and your relationship with your children for years or decades after the case closes. Florida is an equitable distribution state under Florida Statute 61.075, meaning marital assets and liabilities are divided fairly, though not necessarily equally. Determining what constitutes marital versus non-marital property, valuing business interests, addressing retirement accounts through qualified domestic relations orders, and properly calculating alimony under the recently amended Florida Statute 61.08 all require legal expertise that directly affects how much you receive and how much you pay. Child custody in Florida is governed by a parenting plan and time-sharing schedule under Florida Statute 61.13. Once a court order is entered, modification requires proving a substantial change in circumstances. The terms established in the original order frequently control the parent-child relationship for the entire duration of the child's minority. Getting those terms right from the beginning requires an attorney who understands how Florida family courts evaluate the best interests of the child standard and what arguments actually move judges in your specific county. You have been served with a lawsuit. If you're served with a civil complaint in Florida, you typically have 20 days to respond. Failing to file a timely response can result in a default, allowing the plaintiff to win automatically without a trial. A default judgment can then be enforced through wage garnishment, bank levies, or property liens. Although it may be possible to set aside a default by showing excusable neglect and a valid defense, this is not guaranteed and can be costly. The safest approach is to act immediately, retain an attorney, and file a proper response to protect your rights from the start. You are buying or selling real estate. Florida real estate transactions involve binding contracts, disclosures, and title issues with long-term financial impact. Sellers must disclose known defects affecting property value or risk legal claims. Purchase contracts include strict deadlines for inspections, financing, and title review, and missing them can cost your escrow deposit. A proper title examination ensures the property is free from hidden liens or disputes. Careful attention to these legal requirements protects buyers and sellers from costly problems during and after closing. You need an estate plan, or someone close to you has died. Every Florida adult needs an estate plan. Without one, state law controls asset distribution through probate, increasing costs, delays, and family conflict. Florida probate law also imposes strict deadlines for creditors, beneficiaries, and personal representatives, all with serious legal consequences if missed. Proper estate planning helps avoid these risks, protects your assets, and ensures your wishes are followed while reducing stress and uncertainty for your family. You're starting a business or signing a major contract. Florida business formation decisions carry long-term legal and tax consequences that are difficult and expensive to reverse after the fact. Choosing between a sole proprietorship, a Florida limited liability company under Chapter 605 of the Florida statutes, an S corporation, or a C corporation determines your personal liability exposure, your tax treatment, and your ability to bring in partners or investors in the future. Before signing any contract involving significant money, long-term obligations, intellectual property rights, non-compete clauses, or business assets, a Florida business attorney should review the document. Florida's non-compete statute under Florida Statute 542.335 enforces reasonable non-compete agreements that meet specific requirements of legitimate business interest, reasonableness of duration, and geographic scope. Signing an overbroad non-compete without legal review can restrict your ability to work in your industry for years. You are facing a landlord-tenant dispute. Florida landlord-tenant law under Chapter 83 sets strict rules for evictions. Landlords must follow proper notice procedures, and illegal self-help actions like changing locks can result in significant liability, including damages and attorney fees. Tenants facing eviction typically have only 5 days to respond in court. Failure to respond can lead to a default judgment and removal through a writ of possession. Immediate legal action allows tenants to assert defenses, avoid default, and negotiate better outcomes. You have an immigration issue. Florida has one of the largest immigrant populations in the United States. Immigration consequences attach to criminal convictions, visa violations, employment changes, family status changes, and dozens of other life events that Florida residents experience every day without realizing the immigration implications. Under the United States Supreme Court's decision in Padilla versus Kentucky, criminal defense attorneys are constitutionally required to advise non-citizen clients of the deportation consequences of a guilty plea. However, many Florida residents do not have an adder. You have suffered a serious personal injury. Florida's personal injury law operates on a strict statute of limitations under Florida Statute 95.11. For most negligence-based personal injury claims in Florida, the statute of limitations is 2 years from the date of the injury following the 2023 legislative amendment to Florida Statute 95.11(3). For medical malpractice claims, the limitations period is 2 years from the date the incident was discovered or should have been discovered with due diligence under Florida Statute 95.11(4). Missing the statute of limitations permanently bars your claim regardless of how serious your injuries are or how clearly liable the defendant was. Insurance companies begin building their defense from the moment an incident occurs. Evidence disappears, witnesses forget, and surveillance footage is overwritten. A personal injury attorney retained immediately after a serious injury preserves evidence, identifies all liable parties, handles all communications with insurance adjusters, and ensures that every applicable deadline is met. You received any government notice or legal document. Any communication from a Florida or federal government agency, court summons, notice of hearing, administrative complaint, or document referencing legal obligations requires immediate review by a qualified attorney. These notices often carry strict deadlines that may differ from standard court timelines. Agencies, such as the Florida Department of Revenue, professional licensing boards, and the Department of Children and Families can initiate proceedings that begin affecting your rights from the moment you receive the notice. Treating such documents as routine mail can result in missed deadlines, loss of benefits, license suspension, or other serious legal consequences that escalate quickly. Conclusion: the common thread running through every situation in this video is timing. Florida law consistently rewards the people who act early and consistently penalizes the people who wait. An attorney consulted before a crisis develops can prevent it entirely. An attorney retained at the beginning of a legal proceeding shapes the outcome from the start. An attorney hired after deadlines have passed and documents have been signed is working with whatever options remain. Legal fees are always easier to manage at the prevention and early intervention stage than at the damage control stage. The question is never really whether you can afford an attorney. The real question is whether you can afford the consequences of not having one at the moment it mattered most. Like, share, and subscribe.